The reality is that from 10 to 20, the rates of suicide go steadily higher and higher. If you want more numbers, I'll give you more numbers.
Please.
In terms of gender, yes, more girls try to kill themselves than boys. However, more boys complete the act of killing themselves than the girls. So the bottom line is that we have a serious problem that is so painful to converse around that we find it more convenient to hide it under the carpet.
But now we can no longer hide it, Doc. This is so serious.
It is indeed.
What drives a young man or young woman to take their own life?
If you are to look out for just one underlying theme, it is a sense of disconnection. In other words, when you feel disconnected from your mom and dad, if you feel disconnected from your brothers and sisters, if you feel disconnected from God, if you feel disconnected from society, if you feel you have no sense of belonging, then the option of taking away your life become a real one. And very tragically, disconnected young people then go on to kill themselves.
Jalal was mentioning social media earlier on, and Jalas, I think you kind of nailed it.
You see, like from my quote, what I was telling you, like in social media, the economy is very stable.
Yeah, it's double digits.
It's double digits, and everybody is living in good places, eating good food, and everything.
Living large.
Living large. So if you are my age mate, and you can see what I post on Facebook and on Twitter, how my life is good. You understand? And we started at the same platform.
Place, yes.
You understand?
Yes.
You almost give up life, saying that, you know what, this thing has gone, and I cannot be able to catch up with a few age mates and the people that I'm supposed to be with. You understand?
Yeah.
They're driving cars, living in their own homes, going to all these places and holidays. Yet mimi tu nimekwama kwetu wapi? Dandora nimekaa tu hata kitu ya kufanya sina. Unaona?
Yeah.
So drive you to a point where you say what?
You give up.
I give up in
Doc,
life. Then what? Yeah. This person posting all this good life is lying.
They're not living that life.
They're not living that life.
Oh, goodness.
So
I think the proposition that Jalango is giving us here is whether social media is playing a part or a role in making suicides more likely. Science is with you, Jalango. Science is with you that social media actually does contribute to people who would ordinarily not flip and go and kill themselves. But when all the things that you have described happened, a person who would otherwise not have contemplated suicide says, I am the only one without this very good and happy life. So you have a good point, and science is completely and very tragically together with you. But let me say this also, because it's true, that most people who commit suicide, not those who attempt suicide, and there's a big difference between those who attempt and those who actually go on to complete suicide, do so, 90% of them will have a depressive illness. Let me say that again because it's important.
Yeah.
90% of the people who will complete the act of killing themselves will be suffering from a clinically significant, diagnosable medical condition called depression. So actually, ironically, the way to reduce the number of people who die of suicide is actually to make early diagnosis and to treat depression. And that is the true and so each time I see a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 20-year-old man or woman kill themselves, it's failure on us as adults. It's failure on us as mental health specialists to, in a timely way, diagnose and treat depression. So if we could if we could only improve the systems of diagnosis of depression, we would be a long way towards preventing suicide.
And it's the same symptoms of depression that Jalango was talking about.
Yeah.
You've been deprived of your PS4, or your mates have this, that, the other.
Or
You
the
don't.
ideal
Why me?
relationship.
Why me? Yeah, I've been dumped.
It's a little more than that. It's a little more than that, because for some people who have the clinical state of depression, you might even have a good life. You might even have all the things that Jalango is talking about. Yes?
Yeah.
However, the way you perceive yourself, the way you get a sense of hopelessness. I only have a very cheap smartphone. Everybody else has a higher level of a smartphone.
Yeah.
I am not a smart kid. I'm only an B+ student. In other words, when you're depressed, a sunny day becomes a very bad day for you, because whatever reason there is. So let me emphasize and re-emphasize this. It's not just a state of being a little bit sad. It's actually a formal state in which you're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're feeling hopeless, you're losing weight, you're spending all the time in bed. And listen to this one. Drinking.
At that age.
Let me tell you, one of the biggest concomitants of suicide is drugs and substance abuse. Each time I hear if so-and-so, a man or woman, a boy or girl committed suicide, my head tells me, oh my goodness, we have missed another case of drug and alcohol abuse. They're like hand and glove. Alcohol abuse, drug abuse, live in the same house and conspire together to lead on to suicide.
My goodness.
So anytime you see a young man getting drunk, yes, more often than they used to be before, look out for suicide.
Those are signs.
It's a clear telltale sign.
And most of the time, we ignore those signs.
Oh, I mean, you say, oh, it's the mother, it's the auntie, it's the cousin, it's the teachers. Let me give you another one that is a big one. And this will come as a surprise, I think. Bullying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, bullying.
Whether it's physical or cyberbullying.
That is absolutely correct. And cyberbullying, like Jalango was saying, is a serious one, because it does actually happen. It's new in terms, in relative terms, but it's perceived as completely bullying, very, very much as you find in boarding schools. So bullying is another one that we need to really look out for.
Doc, when a young man or woman goes at the act of suicide, and whether it's taking a whole jar of drugs or stringing that rope up there, and it's a whole act. It's not a one process. You're thinking about it as you're putting the rope up, as you're tying it around your head, as you're releasing it. I mean, and I'm sure you've seen these examples. What kind of extreme madness is that?
It's a state of complete hopelessness. In fact, in theory, one cannot commit suicide if they can perceive an exit out of this abyss of sadness. So really, the act of suicide is an expression or description of the fact that I will never get out of this one. Death is the only exit for me. But there's another component which I think is interesting to think about. This is much more in adults than in children. The feeling that when I'm dead, my husband will be better off. My children will be better off. The world will be a better place. I am a burden to this world. Look at this poor government that we have. If I died, I'm sure things will get better for everybody.
They actually think that?
Oh, they get that kind of thinking that the world will be a much happier place without them burdening the world with their presence around here. So that's really the sense and the depth of hopelessness. Let me say something else, if you don't mind. The other thing that is very, very serious, and again, I'm sort of kind of moving on towards adults, is pain.
Pain.
Yeah, if you've got, say, a serious disease, not a serious disease, a disease that is not well controlled, you've got pain in your knees, you've got pain in your neck, you've got abdominal pain that is not going away, yes? That also now leads to a sense of hopelessness that also tells you that the only way I can get rid of this pain in my back or in my neck or in my knee, whatever it is only if I were to die. So people with chronic pain also do look for and sometimes find relief from killing themselves.
Yeah.
In older people, this is common because what they then do is they combine it with the use of alcohol, large amounts of alcohol, and those are the people who find guns and shoot themselves or hang themselves.
Doc, have you seen the numbers growing in the last few years? Let's say the last 15 years since social media came about.
Without a shadow of doubt. Without a shadow. And Jalan, you got it right completely. When you said, you see, now there is the possibility of instantly comparing myself as a teenager, yes, not only with teenagers in Kangemi where I live, but with teenagers in the Silicon Valley, all right? And it's a quick. That comparison, I mean, if I want to know how the Japanese 17-year-olds are living, it's at the click of a button,
Yeah.
and I will actually be able to tell you that youngsters in Miami have more cars, have more smartphones, have better clothes, and I will conclude if I'm disconnected from my mother and father and my siblings, that really I am condemned into a state of perpetual poverty.
My goodness. So, having said all this, Doc, what are the solutions?
It'll be pretentious of me to say that there are the following 8 solutions. But there are certain things around which we could hold a conversation about what could be done. And that thinking has to be found around the basic cause, which I said is a feeling of being disconnected. And also have to be linked with establishing telltale signs of this boy or this girl is likely to commit suicide. So let me explain that. If we were able to make teachers, parents, recognize that teenager is getting depressed, then there is every possibility that teachers and parents could then look out, find those signs of the depression, and refer the youngsters in a timely manner to the specialist who would put intervention methods. There is evidence, a lot of evidence, that actually by training teachers and parents, you can actually get them to say, this boy looks dull. This boy, his marks are going down. This boy is becoming isolated. This boy is... any change in behavior, and particularly in academic performance in a school setting, is an excellent example that something is the matter. A clever boy or girl doesn't come from a B plus and into the D level without a reason. I remember as a child, teachers used to beat boys and girls whose grade went down from A to C, saying that you're a lazy boy and that kind of nonsense. Not true. That kind of behavior is usually due to depression. Secondly, when you see an ordinarily a good boy or girl, yes? And when I say a good boy or girl, I mean the kind of boy or girl all teachers and parents describe as a good boy or girl, drifting now towards bad company, not doing their homework, coming home late, starting to smoke, starting to drink. Telltale signs. People don't change without a reason. And that is critically important. So my view would be, in fact, it's a very interesting study from Iceland, of all places in the world, that satisfies me as an academic, that you can actually teach parents how to be better parents. And it's not big tricks that you get. It's just teaching parents, first of all, how to spend more time with their children, and secondly, to recognize changes, sleeping patterns, eating patterns, homework doing patterns. Look out for all those ones, and then you can intervene on good time.
By the way, Jalas, sorry, before you go on, Iceland, Dr. mentioned Iceland, It's a place where suicides were through the roof. Suicides were just unbelievable, and doctors and psychologists started studying this and saying, why are people committing suicide? But it would mostly happen in the winter. And the winters, and correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, the winters were so long, were so cold, were so depressing, were so dark, that people got so depressed that they committed. Am I right, Doc?
Absolutely. There's a condition, interesting condition called SAD, S-A-D, seasonal affective disorder. What that means is that in tandem with the changes in the weather, people's moods follow that. So in the summer, SAD. It's called SAD, seasonal affective disorder. So in the summer, people are all jolly and happy.
Yeah.
As the days get shorter and shorter, people become sadder and sadder. And in the deep and depth of winter, absolutely.
Jalas is looking at me like...
Let me tell you something else, because it might be even be
That I'm
interesting.
sad because it is dark.
Yes.
And cold and dreary.
Cold and, yes.
And the sun's not coming out.
The sun is not...
We have 12 hours of sunshine here in this country. Every day, 365 days.
Yeah. Let me tell you how you treat that condition, SAD.
Go on.
You expose those people to light. You know how you just like this?
Yeah.
You put it on their faces like this? It sounds funny.
And it changes the mood.
The mood changes. It comes back to... Yes, it actually... In fact, and this is the irony, if you bring these poor Icelandic guys that have this particular condition to Nairobi, they get better.
You see that?
Okay, so... and it's a real condition, eh? It's not an imaginary Njenga condition.
You're talking about parents, Doctor.
Okay, let's go back to parents.
Parents and their role in the lives of their children.
Yeah.
With this ever busy life that parents have got themselves in, absent parents who have left their children in the hands of house helps and everyone.
Yeah.
They don't even get a chance to know how their kids are operating.
Yeah.
They leave very early to beat the traffics of Nairobi.
Yeah. They're listening to us now.
Sometimes.
Yes, they're listening to us.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
They leave so early. Either the children are not awake,
They're still asleep,
they don't get a chance to see them.
Yeah.
They come back home late,
Very late.
when the kids are either asleep. So you are not even part of your child's development. The only time that you get time to be with the children is
when they have failed their exams.
Or they have failed their
Is
exam.
when the teacher has called you.
And you're summoned.
You are
The teacher
summoned.
has called.
Yes.
The teacher has called
Yes.
that huyu minor grade zake
zimeanza kuteremuka.
zimeanza kuporomoka.
And you don't, you are summoned and you don't know anything to say because you've not...
You're disconnected.
You've disconnected.
The child doesn't even know who you are anymore.
Or now on Sundays where you go bribe your children with fast foods and chill with them.
chips.
It's almost a bribe to the kids to feel like, you are a part of them. I think parents play a very big role in this.
Yeah, yes, perhaps don't play any role as parents. And I think the evidence is overwhelming. Now, let me say this, because we stand the risk of overstating our case. And if you overstate our case, the parents who are listening will switch off and say, Bure kabisa, these fellows don't know what they're talking about. The majority of parents listening to us this morning are actually good parents. Otherwise, we wouldn't have you and you. All right? So really what we are talking about is not the majority. It's an important minority. And they're an important minority because the condition we are talking about is potentially preventable. And no young person should die, unnecessarily. Can you believe this? That suicide is the third leading cause of death amongst people under the age of 24.
After what and what?
So other kinds of traumas, yes, and infections. But let me tell you this. When you hear that the son of so-and-so died on Langata Road coming from wherever he's coming from, yes, you're welcome to conclude it was an act of suicide unless they tell you it was something else. All right? So let me repeat this because it's important. Any 20-year-old who dies, even before you ask whether he had an infection or whether he had some other thing, suicide must come at the top of your list. And that is serious. So what I'm saying is that many of the parents listening this morning are okay. Yes?
Yeah.
The ones we're talking about are the ones whose children will commit suicide for the reasons that now Jalango has established.
Stated, yes.
Let me repeat, because as a teacher I know the power of repetition.
Correct.
There are always telltale signs in youth suicide. What we are talking about this morning are how do we get parents and teachers in particular to have their antennae raised to say progressively dropping standards in class, withdrawal, social, and so on. Let me tell you something else which we adults don't think about. So this boy or girl is 17 or 18, yes? They break up with their first sweetheart, yes? And we blame that girl. I mean, she's the daughter of so-and-so, and that she's, in any case, we didn't like her, and yeah. Let me tell you, a lot of young people commit suicide in the context of broken up relationships. We think that when you're 17 or 18, you have a whole lifetime ahead of you. And I mean, you can pick and choose girlfriends and boyfriends for the next number of years.
Yeah.
Not true. These are important relationships that keep youngsters grounded. So when you as a parent are aware that your son or daughter is breaking up, in the process of breaking up with whatever it is, it's important. But let me say something else, and I hope this makes sense. Girls are very funny people. They don't like depressed boys. All right? So what happens a lot of times is here is a girl who has had a good relationship with a boy for a number of years, and for whatever reason, the boy starts getting depressed. Because she's 18, instinctively she decides, I don't want to be a mommy. This poor guy is getting depressed. So you break up the relationship. The boy then suffers what the Americans call a double whammy. Broken relationship and continuation of the depression. Incidentally, it also works the other way. Boys don't like depressed girls. All right? So the boys do exactly the same. Young men and women only want you when you're fun. When the girl is getting depressed, she's becoming moody, she's becoming withdrawn, she's not doing her hair, her clothes are chafu. Yes?
Yep.
The boy says, look, how many girls are in this school? I can pick and choose, and I only wanted you. So broken relationships are sometimes caused by depression. And when that crucial separation takes place, it leads straight on to suicide.
Wow, goodness, dog. Okay, someone is listening to you right now. Some young person, a young boy, young girl, who, for lack of a better word, is contemplating. Yeah. Or, let's put it your way, is depressed.
Yeah.
Feels there's nothing to live for.
Yeah.
Feels my grades aren't getting any better. My teachers hate me. My friends hate me. Social media bullies me every day. If they're listening to you right now, Doc, what do you tell them?
I'd like to talk, first of all, about the young people, as you've asked me to, and then address their parents. All right?
Yeah.
For the young person, and this is almost a paradox, I would like to say there is hope. And there is hope if you are able to talk to your mother, to your father, to your pastor, even to a friend. And just say, you know what? I heard this old man on radio the other day saying that when you feel like this, hopeless and sad, and that actually one may be suffering from a clinical depression, and that old man said that it's possible to get treatment. Was he right, or was I dreaming? Just the fact that you have raised the possibility that there is treatment for a depressive illness, in my mind, if we can achieve to do that amongst the young people who are on their way to school this morning, and that they can go to a teacher, any teacher, and say, you know what, I really need to see a mental health specialist about this one because I'm not sure, we will have achieved our objective for this morning.
So you're saying acknowledgement.
Just say it is a possibility. It is a possibility.
Yeah.
Let the teacher tell you, no, that man was talking rubbish.
Okay.
But don't allow that feeling of sadness and hopelessness and wanting to die persist without informing a third party. And I'm not prescribing who that third party could be. So that's for the youngsters. Tell your teacher, tell your mother, tell your father, tell your priest, tell your uncle. Yes? Because sometimes people get depressed, and this is the irony, because your relationship with your parents is so poor, that now causes the depression. So what I'm prescribing may be impossible because the very reason you're feeling so detached is because your relationship with your parents is so difficult and you're detached from them.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So now that's the 18, 19-year-old on their way to wherever they're going. To their parents, I would like to suggest that depression is common, and it's a very, very common condition in young people and in adults as well. Now, that's an important acknowledgement because part of the reason we are where we are today is that there is this misconception that depression is a disease of the West. It's a disease of the rich. It belongs and exists only to your neighbors.
Yeah.
Let me tell you one or two numbers. Today, 25 to 30% of the people who will go to any outpatient department in this country will primarily be suffering from depression or some related psychological condition.
1/3.
1/3. But what they will do is they will go to the general practitioner and say, naumwa na mgongo, naumwa na tumbo, But because the general doctor is trained to recognize humwa na kichwa na tumbo, yes, they will not go behind and beyond that to ask, how did you sleep? How do you feel?
Yeah.
So at that level, the diagnosis is not made. But that's for adults primarily. For children, the telltale signs are withdrawal, poor class performance, irritability, and depression in young people is completely and significantly different from that of adults. So what am I saying to those parents who are listening? Yes? Look out for change. All right? A boy or girl who used to be tidy in their room, a boy or girl who used to get home and do their homework, a boy or girl who has changed, now they're spending all the time in front of television and on their phone. That change is a telltale sign that tells you something is the matter here. Change. Change from a good, hard-working boy or girl to one whose room is completely untidy, not doing their homework, grades dropping. And that is a point to look for mental health specialists and ask, is it possible that this is the problem before us today?
Yeah. And at the same time, they could just be going through a phase.
You know, now you've really introduced an interesting concept because it is very safe for ignorant parents to say, but after all, my older sister told me that her son went through adolescence exactly like this. So the conclusion then becomes, the safe conclusion, which turns out to be a dangerous conclusion, is that this is adolescence. All right?
Yes.
Adolescence.
Yes.
Now, let me say something else, because, again, I have a constituency to serve in terms of my people.
Yes.
The majority of parents are good parents. And this is the irony, and I keep saying this in whatever place I'm asked to go. The majority of parents are good parents. They bring up good, strong, healthy Jalango type people. And life is fine.
Yes.
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 I'm talking about a very important minority for whom adolescence is not a normal adolescence. When is the time to go and look for help? Is when your own head tells you, what if? What if this, my boy and girl, it's better and safer to go to a mental health specialist, and they do, and we will tell you, don't worry, you're a warrior, don't worry, send this boy back to school. I would rather we err in that direction than we err in the direction of saying, oh my God, I wish I knew. And I'll tell you why that is important.
Yeah.
When you take your car for servicing, yes, and the mechanic tells you Your car is in perfectly good health. See, you're happy.
Very.
When you go for a physical examination and you see your physician and he tells you, your cholesterol is good, your blood sugar is good, everything is good, so you smile.
Yes.
That's what we are talking about. Go and have this check. In the event that you raise any doubt in your mind, raise the index of suspicion, seek for an opinion. That is prevention.
Doc, explain something to me. The other day, those committed suicide. Well, help me here.
Okay. How much time do you have?
You have 10 minutes only.
No, seriously. I mean, this is as big a question as you could ask. And you've asked 2 or 3 questions in one. The first question you've asked is, what is the relationship between high intelligence and depression and suicide? There is a great deal of evidence that there is a connection between very high intelligence and all manner of mental disorders. All right? The genetic explanation for that is fairly simple. Is that when you get the gene for high intelligence, that gene and the gene for mental illness, particularly depression, live and exist in close proximity. So the likelihood of inheriting the two of them
It's
together,
a fine line.
Yeah, it's close. And that's why there's almost in a jocular manner.
Yes.
People talk about the genius,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
who has mental illness of one sort
Correct.
or another. But that's a big one, yes? The second concept that you have introduced, which is absolutely fascinating, is when people commit suicide, what is it around there that is the problem? It's the drop. Yes? If you are, if you have 10 billion shillings in your account, and then you end up with 5 billion, all of us would think 5 billion is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I, who had 10, it is the drop from 10 to 5. It is a drop from number 1 to number 2. Fascinating studies from the poor people of India, and there are 1 or 2 people who are poor from India, support this hypothesis, saying that you would think that the people who live in the slums, yes, of India, particularly women, yes, will commit suicide because they live in abject poverty. Not true. The people who commit suicide are the ones who come from index 1 of poverty to index 3 of poverty. In other words, literally, it is the drop from where you used to be to where you are now today. Now, then there is what I have said all morning. Yes, I'm talking about this boy who committed suicide. The whole concept of why would a boy who was number 1 commit suicide when he became number 2, which is a very respectable position.
Yeah.
Well, ask yourself, why did he drop from number 1 to number 2? I have already told you. This is a sign that he's coming on from number 1 to number 2, and all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
He's dropping because he is depressed. And you, the observer, have not been able to know that actually the boy is getting depressed. Let me just say one last thing on this particular account. The person who is depressed actually knows they are depressed. They have no energy. They are not sleeping well. They are not eating well. And the tragedy is, you, the parent, are telling him, oh, Tieno, you're becoming lazy these days. How can you come? That girl who beat you in the class. How can you be beaten by a girl like that? Yes? Now, the poor guy is trying his best. Yes? And you, the mother or the father, are pushing it down his throat and saying, bure kabisa wewe. So now it's getting worse because you're feeling sad, you're performing badly, and the entire support system that's supposed to be around you is telling you how bure you are.
Wow.
So it's a long conversation that, just a drop in performance.
Yes.
It's very, very important.
It's a telltale sign.
Absolutely.
Sandra Kathomi says, very interesting insights. Carly, all the way from Seattle, Washington, says she's loving the remarkable conversation.
Pascal Yulem Kenya anasema, really learnable. I love how Dr. Frank is giving advice. He may be the teens' heroes today.
Yes, indeed. Mailu James says, it is so painful. Nobody should die a premature death.
Oduorunguka on his side say, I hope I never fail to see the same in my child, because I want to be better, to be known, and to see the signs out, the telltale sign that Dr. Frank is saying.
Mabuka Jr., you say, thanks for inviting Dr. Frank Njenga. Very educative show.
Thank you so much.
Doc, we can't leave you without touching on one little thing. We talked about 33 policemen committing suicide in the last 9 months. That's an average of about 4 a month, and you yourself said it's about 1 a week policeman. Are they any different from the rest of us?
There's a concept, interesting concept globally, about post-traumatic stress disorders,
PTSD,
which itself is a factor that leads on to suicide. And it's very common, science is very clear on this one, amongst people we call fast responders. Mm-hmm. Now, fast responders include the police, the firemen, ambulance people, and so on. People who get to the scenes of danger. Yes?
Yeah.
And we know that exposure, particularly to body parts, to blood, to trauma, and so on, themselves predispose to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and therefore suicide. I have not studied the police force in Kenya. I do not know what is going on in our police force. But generally, globally, first responders are at greater risk for PTSD and other conditions like that. So it's possible, but I have not studied the police in Kenya, and I don't know.
Well, if the police are doing that, can you imagine KDF going to Somalia and what they see and go through?
You see, now, Jeff, what you're doing is you're introducing big subjects toward the end. Let me tell you,
yes.
Because one of the predeterminants of post-traumatic stress disorder, alcohol use disorders, depression, and suicide is exposure to trauma. Yes?
Yeah.
And this could be trauma in childhood. In fact, in children, physical trauma, sexual trauma, exposure, like you say, among army and the police and other first responders. All these things are the antecedents of post-traumatic stress disorder, alcohol use disorders, depression, and suicide. And again, it's not particularly amongst the Kenyan police. It's amongst all fast responders. The risks are higher and higher.
Absolutely. Doc, this is a fascinating subject, and I would really love you to come back and talk about it another time. But before we let you go, some advice out there, and I know you're a good man to give advice out there, and you know, people can take it for what it is, but it's always good to throw it out there on the wall. Hopefully it'll stick at some point. What is your advice right now?
I will have 2 pieces of advice again. The first one is to the young men and women. There is hope. Talk to an adult, talk to an uncle, talk to an auntie, talk to your parents, talk to a teacher, talk to somebody. If you feel that the drop in grades, the sense of belonging, if anyone they're changing, talk to somebody. The second one is to parents. Depression and suicide happen to your families, not to your neighbors. It will happen in your families. Don't think that it's only your neighbors who have bullies in their homes. Don't imagine that it's only your neighbors' children who will get depressed. This thing happens in the homes of the very, very best. It doesn't respect age, it doesn't respect race, it doesn't respect creed. It goes to any and every home. So look out for it in case it comes knocking on your doorstep.
It doesn't discriminate.
It doesn't. And it's an equalizer. It equalizes people from the very highest to the very lowest. But having said all those negative things, it is treatable. It's actually preventable, and depression can be treated and treated completely. And people get better, go back to university, graduate, get married, and life becomes mzuri sana.
Dr. Frank Njenga, folks. Doctor, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do it? Because obviously there's someone listening right now.
Are you on Facebook? Are you on Instagram? Are you
Let
on
me tell
Twitter
you
or
the
Snapchat?
easiest thing. Yes, but the easiest place is to go to Chiromo Lane Medical Center website. Actually, now that you ask, all right, and don't even call me. Yes,
No.
go to the Chiromo Lane Medical Center website,
Yeah.
and two things will happen. First, you will find a long list of frequently asked questions, many of the ones that I have not addressed today. Frequently asked questions, you'll find the answers there.
Okay.
The second one is you will find self-assessment things. Yes, whether you're depressed, whether you've got anxiety or SPD. So the Chiromo Lane Medical website, I hope you go there, and then after that you will find me. Yeah, Frank Njenga Mzee, like this, like
Yes,
this.
yes. Chiromo Lane Medical Center website.
Absolutely.
Go there if you need help. Don't be in denial. A lot of us are a lot of the times. But like Dr. Frank Njenga just said, it is treatable.
It is treatable,
It is
and
treatable.
everything will be okay.
Yes.
To all ladies, not all of you are supposed to have that big wedding.
Yeah.
You
Correct.
Understand?
Correct. No, it's
If
true.
a friend of yours has, then hiyo ni yake.
Yeah.
Hiyo ni yake.
You don't know madeni atakuwa nayo baada ya hiyo wedding.
Correct.
Unajua?
Yeah.
Not all of you are supposed to have that big baby shower. You understand?
Absolutely.
Things like that. Very, very simple things.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
Samsung Note 8 is out. Not everybody is supposed to have it.
And you're not going to get it.
You're not going to get
Very
it.
few
You are
will
just
get it.
okay with your Techno. You understand? Or your
Absolutely.
Infinix.
Absolutely.
You understand?
Yeah.
This is to the teens. You see?
Yeah.
Not everybody must go to Maldives for holiday.
No.
Eh?
Where?
Oh, Maldives.
He's jealous.
Watu wengine wanaweza enda kuona the crying stone Bungoma.
Yeah. Na wanafurahi.
Na wanafurahi. You understand? Thank you so much, Daktari.
Great
Dr.
pleasure.
Frank Njenga,
Thank you for asking me
you
to come.
are incredible. You're fantastic. And just for you, we're going to play a song that,
You're dedicating to Park to Daktari.
life goes on.
Life goes
Life
on.
goes on.
Oh, how's that?
Incredible, yes.
Is that okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. God bless you, and thanks so much.
The Hot Breakfast with Jeff and Jalango.